Hey everyone, good evening and welcome to the IPMAT IIM Indore 2025 exam analysis. We took time to come live, but I think it's going to be worth it. So काफी समय लगा बच्चों से बात करने का. I know the exam got over at 4 p.m. and you guys are eagerly waiting to know more about the cutoffs and all. But yes, we took feedback from a lot of students, not just at the exam center, but beyond that, we were in touch with a lot of students actually. So for the last 2 hours, there was a lot of discussion going on with the aspirants who gave the exam today. Of course, this is a very big day for any IPM aspirant and one hell of a big exam, I would say. और ये एग्जाम इसलिए बड़ा है because there are so many other colleges to which you can apply using the IPMAT IIM Indore score. So not just it is about admissions to the IPM program at IIM Indore, but you also get admissions to the IIM and then the newly introduced programs at IIM Shillong, IIM Amritsar. Beyond that, we have Nirma University, we have TAPMI, we have IIFT, Nalsar. So there are so many colleges, and not to forget IIM Sirmaur BMS as well. So there are so many colleges where you can get admission based on your performance in today's examination. So with me, I have Shashwita Yadav, and Shashwita is product manager for IPM BBA entrance exams at Career Launcher, and she herself is an IIM alumni. So we are going to talk about welcome Shashwita, and
Thank you.
she has been speaking to a lot of students actually. So she just, in fact, a moment ago, she just finished her last conversation with a student actually, and that's why probably we got delayed by another minute or so. So the whole idea was to bring you the uh, most all information collated actually, and जितने ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा information हम gather कर सके. So that was the entire thought. Let us go ahead and start with the first impression. What has been the first impression about today's examination from students' perspective? तो ओवरऑल जो डिफिकल्टी लेवल है, आई थिंक स्टूडेंट्स हैव फाउंड इट टू बी मॉडरेटली डिफिकल्ट, एक्चुअली मॉडरेट टू डिफिकल्ट, particularly because of the length of the English section. But and if you look at, of course, जिन्होंने आज एग्जाम दिया है, they would be aware कि इतने आरसीज तो कभी नहीं आए IIM इंदौर के पेपर में टेक्निकली, वो और आरसीज लेंदी भी थे. तो एक तो वो इशू रहा. एग्जाम पैटर्न में कोई खास चेंज नहीं थे. 15 क्वेश्चन इन शॉर्ट आंसर टाइप, 13 एमसीक्यूज ऑफ क्वांट and 45 in English. That was on the expected lines with the same time limits and everything. But MCQ of quantitative ability section was definitely a surprise this time. Arithmetic, we rely a lot actually, and this time the arithmetic was quite less as compared to the previous years. Short answer का जो section है वो definitely relief बनकर आया students के लिए. Before I go ahead and we delve deeper into each of these sections, Sashwita, what has been the reaction from the students you spoke to today actually?
Sure, sir. So as soon as I start connecting with the students, they were like कि मैम अब तो इस बार तो कौन से MCQ ने बहुत ही ज़्यादा धोखा सा दे दिया है, because throughout the year we were majorly focusing on arithmetic topics, and even in the past examinations we have seen कि arithmetic के majorly questions आते हैं. There are definitely other topics. There is a mix of topic that is being asked in IPMAT Indore examination, but arithmetic constitute a good part of the entire section. आप QA की अगर बात करो तो arithmetic के good questions होते हैं, but this time specifically for MCQ section the scenario was completely different. I guess the situation completely flipped, and we had a lot of questions, or we can say कि algebra और higher mathematics driven था वो particular section, and अरिथमेटिक के तो बहुत ही कम क्वेश्चंस देखने को मिले, एंड दैट पोज्ड अ चैलेंज इन फ्रंट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स because the preparation was a bit different. Not everyone is comfortable with higher mathematics as a topic, so definitely सबकी approach different रहती है section को लेके भी, but since the entire section was completely different and it was majorly driven by आपका algebra के questions, so student did had a disappointment with this section कि हाँ हमने जैसा plan किया था, we didn't we weren't able to attempt those many questions, we weren't satisfied with our attempts. So that was the major reaction around quants, specifically MCQ. Essay was still similar to the last year that we had, so इतना कोई issue भी नहीं हुआ essay के section में. VA was again manageable, वहाँ पे भी कोई as such difficulty नहीं आई. In terms of the question का pattern और या हम question का nature बोलें, वो definitely differ किया है. As you also stated, RC were like there was an additional RC this year. Usually we saw see कि हम दो RC तो expect करते हैं, but there was an additional RC हुए हैं. But yes, both VA and your quantitative short answer, those both sections were manageable. MCQ was a challenge, and that was completely out of the blue. ऐसा situation pose किया बच्चों के सामने. So yes,
Yeah. So
a bit disappointed.
don't you think you also gave CAT, you went to IIM? Don't you think this paper is gradually moving towards that line? धीरे धीरे CAT की तरह होता जा रहा है.
यस, बिकॉज इवन सर कैट में भी हमारा सरप्राइजेस से भरा रहता है कभी ना कभी. तो इवन एलआर का जो सेक्शन होता है दैट इज वेरी अनप्रिडिक्टेबल, एंड ये अनप्रिडिक्टेबिलिटी हमारी आई गेस यहाँ पे भी इनकॉर्पोरेट करने की कोशिश की जा रही है. सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ लाइक दे आर नॉट बीइंग कंसिस्टेंट कि बच्चे कंफर्टेबल ही हो जाए, अच्छा यही आएगा. सो व्हाट वुड बी द रेलेवेंस ऑफ दिस एग्जामिनेशन. सो आई गेस उसके साथ थोड़ा सा ट्वीक करने के लिए दे हैव इंट्रोड्यूस दिस डिफरेंट entirely different structure this year in terms of paper किस कॉम्पोजिशन क्या होता है इस पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन का. सो उसके साथ थोड़ा सा तो प्ले किया है इंस्टीट्यूट ने डेफिनेटली.
Definitely, and I think we have been telling this again and again. Of course, kids got surprised today, but one element I think we have always consistently been telling that VA is the game changer always as far as IPMAT IIM Indore is concerned. And today also the story is not different actually. Of course, BA का cutoff मुझे लगता है थोड़ा नीचे जाएगा. We'll talk about that shortly. But VA always has been a game changer actually. कि वहाँ पे किस तरीके का performance है, what sort of performance today students have given over there, that will largely determine actually who clears the cutoff for the IPM program at IIM Indore for the next stage, which is the personal interview. Of course, we'll get to know about it later. Let's move on, look at each of these sections. तो अगर सेक्शन वाइज इनसाइट्स की बात करते हैं तो ऑफ कोर्स इजी टू मॉडरेट, क्वांटिटेटिव एबिलिटी, शॉर्ट आंसर सभी के लिए आसान नहीं था, बट मेजरली द किड्स आई इंटरेक्टेड टू एंड आई वाज टॉकिंग टू देम, they felt that बहुत डिफिकल्ट नहीं था. इट वाज काइंड ऑफ इजी. सम स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ कोर्स फेल्ट दैट मॉडरेट, थोड़ा क्वांट वैसे भी डर लगता है. MCQ as you mentioned was difficult today, and English again depending on the student it varies from easy to moderate. Of course it was not that difficult. Lengthy, yes, they agreed for actually. So let's get with that first impression in place. Let's get deeper into each of these sections and understand what exactly happened when it comes to the quantitative sections and the verbal ability sections. Ashwita, let's begin with the short answer type.
श्योर सर. सो एक मेजर डिस्टिंक्शन जो रहता है क्वेश्चंस के बीच में कि इधर द क्वेश्चंस आर वेरी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड और दे आर अ लिटिल एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड. तो अगर हम इस सेक्शन की बात करें तो यहाँ पे क्वेश्चंस वर अ बिट स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड ओनली. यहाँ पे कोई भी ऐसे एप्लीकेशन या बहुत ज्यादा टाइम आप कह लो कि बहुत ज्यादा कॉन्सेप्ट्स को रिकॉल करना और उसके बाद अगर सॉल्विंग की बात करें तो वहाँ पे ऐसी ऐसी डिफिकल्टी नहीं है. दैट इज व्हाई इफ वी हैव टू लुक एट द अटेम्प्ट्स एज वेल, when I talk to the students as well, they were like आराम से 8-9 क्वेश्चंस तो इस सेक्शन में आराम से हो गए थे, ऐसे कुछ डिफिकल्टी भी नहीं आई थी इतने नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस अटेम्प्ट करने के लिए. सो वी ऑलरेडी हैव 15 क्वेश्चंस, आउट ऑफ दैट 9 क्वेश्चंस तो आराम से अटेम्प्ट कर लिए थे. 9-10 क्वेश्चंस वर doable, they were manageable. So when you talk about essay, it wasn't a challenge for the students, and even जो हमने डिफिकल्टी लेवल हमने एमसीक्यू की देख ली, and since there was some difference, थोड़ा सा deviation variance था in terms of what we expect usually in the VA section as well. तो वहाँ पे अगर हम तीनों सेक्शन को कंपेयर करते हैं, this one was like the easiest among all in terms of कि कुछ different नहीं आया as such इसमें इस सेक्शन में. सो यस, द क्वेश्चंस वर इस सेक्शन में दे वर अ मिक्स ऑफ बोथ एप्टीट्यूड क्वेश्चंस. हमने अरिथमेटिक के भी थोड़े क्वेश्चंस यहाँ पे देखे, थोड़े क्वेश्चंस हमने यहाँ पे हायर मैथमेटिक्स से भी देखे. सो अगर हम एप्टीट्यूड की बात करें, दे वर ऑल डूएबल. हायर मैथमेटिक्स वर अ बिट चैलेंजिंग. सो यस, दैट वाज द केस. एंड यहाँ पे हमने एलआर का भी एक सेट देखा है. सो डेटा एप्लीकेशन में वी हैड एन एलआर सेट which had 3 questions, and it was majorly based on teams. So few members were given and few teams were given. We have to determine the composition of that team. So that sort of question was asked from the data interpretation section. We had a lot of questions. अब यहाँ पे हम बात करें, यहाँ पे इतना हमने मिक्स नहीं देखा टॉपिक्स का, बट इफ ओवरऑल अगर हम क्वांट्स के सेक्शन को देखते हैं, सो द कॉन्सेप्ट और जो क्वेश्चन जो थे हमारे वो मिक्स ऑफ टॉपिक्स थे. So there wasn't just like one topic that was asked within a question. वहाँ पे mix of 2 topics थे. So let's just say अभी अगर हम logarithm का यहाँ पे example लेते हैं, लॉगरिथम के क्वेश्चन का, लॉगरिथम से क्वेश्चन आया था, बट इट वाज मोर ऑफ कि लॉगरिथम का भी कॉन्सेप्ट था एंड एपी का भी कॉन्सेप्ट था, तो एपी की सीरीज थी बट वो लॉग लॉग के ऊपर बेस्ड थी. सो दैट वाज द सिनेरियो ओवर हियर एज वेल. हमारा एज के रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन था, वी हैड क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम मैट्रिसेस एज वेल. इवन मैट्रिसेस का अगर हम एमसीक्यू में भी देखेंगे तो इट वाज अगेन अ मिक्स ऑफ टू कॉन्सेप्ट. सो यहाँ पे definitely we'll talk about the MCQ part, but this section was pretty much about being straightforward, not a lot of confusion. It kind of posed in front of students. Yes, mix of all the topics that we usually see in this section, so pretty manageable. This section was pretty manageable.
इनफैक्ट इफ आई टॉक अबाउट दिस सेक्शन, जो डेटा इंटरप्रिटेशन एलआर बेस्ड जो एक सेट आया 3 क्वेश्चन, लास्ट ईयर मीडियन का था इनफैक्ट, रिमेंबर करेक्टली, एंड दो स्टूडेंट्स हु अटेंडेड गौतमपुरी सेशन which started on 6th of May, हमने we solved the past year papers, helping them understand how to attempt the paper. I'm sure that was covered over there actually, and students paid attention to that. But last year it was about median, तो almost same data पे 3 अलग-अलग जगह पे questions थे, एक ही order में नहीं थे. So shouldn't have come that big as a surprise. Of course, this was LR being definitely was a surprise element for quantitative ability अगर मैं बात करूँ तो. But I think more or less, as you mentioned, that's what the feedback I received from the students कि this was among the 3, this was the easy one probably, and 9 to 10 questions तो definitely कर सकते थे. अगर maths हमारा थोड़ा भी ठीक है तो definitely we could have done that. चलो, move on to the next one, which is MCQ, जहाँ पे challenge हुआ. I think this is where the students are not very happy.
Definitely, they are really not happy with their attempts. बिल्कुल भी satisfied नहीं है, because again the situation was different. What they expected, they didn't have, like face the same scenario when they were sitting for writing this examination as well. तो यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा disappointed, तो थोड़ा क्या बहुत ही ज़्यादा disappointed थे, because the attempt went lower for a lot of students. Because not everyone is, again as I said, not everyone is that comfortable with the higher mathematics topic. And even I got feedback from the student as well. So they were stating कि जो भी science का student होगा यहाँ पे, because they are way much comfortable, or they must have studied these topics, higher mathematics topic in their class 11th and 12th as well. So उनके लिए उतनी difficulty नहीं है आई होगी, even though उनका focus अगर arithmetic पे भी रहा होगा, since they are comfortable or familiar with the higher mathematics topics as well. So उनके लिए doable हो जाएगा यहाँ पे. But again, this particular section was more of application based. यहाँ पे स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चंस नहीं थे. तो जैसे हम बात करते 2 to 3 टॉपिक्स का मिक्सचर था. एंड अगेन सिंस एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड था तो उन्होंने थोड़ा सा टाइम भी कंज्यूम किया था. इट वाज नॉट कि आपने डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन पढ़ा एंड यू वर एबल टू गेट इट डन इन वन गो. यू रिक्वायर्ड द क्वेश्चंस रिक्वायर्ड सम स्किमिंग, प्रॉपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, कॉम्प्रिहेंडिंग इट वेल, एंड देन अप्रोचिंग इट. सो थोड़ा सा टाइम कंज्यूम किया है उन्होंने इन टर्म्स ऑफ कि क्या अप्रोच रह सकती है इस पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन, बिकॉज अगेन एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड थे तो 2-3 टॉपिक्स का मिक्सचर था, एंड दैट इज व्हाई इट रिक्वायर्ड सम थिंकिंग, इट रिक्वायर्ड सम like one has to dedicate some genuine amount of time to attempt those questions. That was the scenario. अब बात करें, जैसे कि हमने देखा बहुत ही लेस क्वेश्चन थे, द स्टूडेंट्स वर लाइक कि या तो मिल ही नहीं रहे थे वो क्वेश्चंस, इतने कम थे, या होंगे भी तो हमें पता ही नहीं चले, क्योंकि the number of questions from arithmetic were very less, because mostly they were like every other alternate question that they had was either around algebra or around higher mathematics. So that was the scenario. So again थोड़ा सा disappointed हैं बच्चे यहाँ पे. But जब attempt की बात करें हम, वहां पे दे हैड लाइक आराम से 15 क्वेश्चंस, दे वर एबल टू मैनेज इट विद इन दैट रेंज. अगर हम बोले भी 10 के ऊपर, 12 के ऊपर क्वेश्चंस यू वन मस्ट हैव अटेम्प्टेड इजीली. सो दैट वाज द सिनेरियो. यहाँ पे अगर हम डेटा इंटरप्रिटेशन, हमारा यहाँ पे भी एक सेट आया था सिमिलर टू आपका, जैसे हमने देखा एसए में था हमारा एक डेटा इंटरप्रिटेशन का सेट, यहाँ पे भी था, बट इट वाज नॉट बेस्ड ऑन एलआर, इट वाज बेस्ड ऑन द परसेंटेज का कॉन्सेप्ट. सो that is why the question from within that set was a bit tedious as well. It was time consuming to the calculate, there were a lot of calculation. The question was very direct, it was easy, आपको percentage change या growth ही निकालनी थी, but it like every question within that set involved a lot of calculation, so वो time consuming हो गया. So जो थोड़ा सा comfortable है calculators के साथ on the screen calculator, वहाँ पे उन्होंने अपना time बचा लिया होगा, else this set might have uh, gained a lot of time of theirs. So that was the scenario over here. Geometry की definitely हमारे पास 3 questions थे, polygon and all those triangles and all those sort of topics.
I think students should not worry much actually, because accordingly, see, the paper was same for everybody actually, so everybody has been impacted in this section. In fact, couple students have already commented about their attempts. Sharanya mentions that I did 33 in VA, 9 in SA, 18 in MCQ. So far, जो हम बात कर रहे हैं good attempt का, almost similar attempts हैं शरण्या के. Similarly, Catalyst is saying attempt 8 in SA, 20 MCQ QA, and 45 VARC. फिर भी आई थिंक कपल ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आई थिंक जहां पर शायद डाउट है, बट आई थिंक मोर और लेस अटेम्प्ट किया स्टूडेंट्स ने ऑन द एक्सपेक्टेड लाइंस इटसेल्फ. So this will have an impact on the cutoff to a certain extent, not to a larger extent, I believe, because at the end of the day, you need to understand the intake is quite low. So intake ultimately is 150 actually, and roughly around 22,000 students writing the examination. That's what I'm hopeful. Last year nearly itna hi tha. So that will like largely make it up actually, because at the end of the day, you have to also look at from every category they are picking certain number of students only, so finding those much of students, and at the end of the day from across all the categories they nearly cover around 830 840 students for the next stage. So that should not be difficult, but we'll look into that aspect. We'll reveal the cutoffs very soon. Verbal ability, of course, the surprise element, which I believe, and was three RCs or 12 lengthy there. But of course, one was which took students with surprise was the conversational RC, which was given out there. और सारे questions direct नहीं थे, inference based questions भी थे, direct questions भी थे. So what's your take over here?
Since this was unexpected, एक additional RC भी था, and as you stated, वो mix of questions थे वहाँ पे. Direct तो एक ही शायद RC से question आया था, जो direct like most of the questions were direct from that particular RC. But for the rest of RC, they were again mix set of questions, inference based थोड़ा सा higher side पे थे वहाँ पे. So that was the feedback that I received regarding RC, and थोड़े से lengthy भी थे, तो time consume कर रहे थे in terms of understanding the RC, in terms of comprehending it, and then coming to the solution. So they were lengthy a bit. Definitely grammar was doable in comparison to RC, because RC थोड़ा सा time consume कर रहे थे, inference based थे, not direct questions, not straightforward questions from RC. So grammar same, like it seemed to be more doable in comparison to the RC. We had parajumbles questions as well, and those were like, as per the feedback of the students, those were theta based questions, so similar to the short answer questions that we see in the contest section. So आपके पास options नहीं थे, you have to put in your answer in within the given box, given place, and it had your negative marking as well. So हम short answer में देखते हैं कि वहाँ पे theta question, वो भी sort of theta questions ही हैं, but वहाँ पे negative marking नहीं होती. But over here, the negative marking was there. So I hope people were mindful about it. Ki, just because theta question they didn't went with that thought कि यहाँ पे भी negative marking नहीं होगी. So that was the scenario. We had para completion questions around 4 to 5 questions from there. Vocab के जो questions that I got to know कि they were like all the vocab questions, they had some sort of context for it. So ऐसा नहीं कि बहुत ही difficult questions आए, they were provided in a sentence, the word was provided within a sentence, and on the basis of definitely one can interpret or comprehend कि क्या context हो सकता है उस word का, and they were able to manage those questions as well. We had a lot of questions from there as well. Sentence improvement पे भी कुछ questions थे. Idiom and phrases, they weren't very direct, or we can say they weren't very common. So that was the feedback for the verbal ability section.
In fact, what I understood after speaking to the students and what you are saying right now, I think calmness was very important for this section. This was very much doable paper. जो लोग पेशेंस के साथ थे, काम थे एकदम एग्जाम इस सेक्शन तक, आई थिंक वो क्यूए इसके पहले आता है, उससे अफेक्टेड नहीं हुए थे, तो दे वुड हैव डन रियली वेल. So I think the one part which all the students are waiting to be revealed actually, and I think this is what they are waiting for actually. So what I do is see this pattern. If I talk about the current exam structure, was introduced in the year 2022. So during the COVID in 2020 and 2021, there were 60 question paper. This 90 question paper was introduced in 2022. And considering the overall scenario, we have been chasing it for the last so many years. This is what I think should be the cutoff this year. If we talk about sectional cutoff, मुझे नहीं लगता है कि as far as general category एसए का जो कट ऑफ है उसमें बहुत ज्यादा फर्क आएगा. आई स्टिल मेंटेन, देखो यहाँ पर जो नंबर होगा दैट विल बी ऑलवेज इन द मल्टीपल ऑफ 4 because there is no negative marking in this section. So 24 was the cutoff last year as well, and this is what I expect not to change this year. Maybe it can go on the higher side, it could become, but I'll still stick to 24. If at all it increases, it could be maybe 28. EWS, I believe not much changes. See, this also will depend on the number of students writing the examination, so that also has to be taken care of. अगर हम लास्ट ईयर एनसी ओबीसी की बात करते हैं, नॉन क्रीमी लेयर ओबीसी की, तो लास्ट ईयर कट ऑफ 12 था. आई एक्सपेक्ट दिस टाइम थोड़ा सा कॉम्पिटेटिव हो जाएगा, ऊपर जाना चाहिए. एससी एसटी में मुझे खास फर्क आता हुआ दिख नहीं रहा है. दिस इज व्हाट माय एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि 12 ही होना चाहिए. हो सकता है पीडब्ल्यूडी में, अब ये डिपेंड करेगा कि हाउ मेनी पीडब्ल्यूडी कैटेगरी स्टूडेंट्स हैड अपीयर्ड फॉर द एग्जामिनेशन टुडे, बिकॉज दिस नंबर विल ऑब्वियसली वैरी. This could be 12. So this is a larger possibility which I see. At max here we can look around 16, but I'll still stick to 12 as a number over here. NCOBC मुझे लग रहा है definitely 4 point increase होगा, 16 जाना चाहिए. General could vary either 24 या 28. अगर हम quantitative ability MCQ section की बात करते हैं, if we talk about this section, over the last 3 years we have seen the cutoff dropping. So in the year 2022 it was 43 for a general category student, then in 23 it became 39, last year it was 35. I believe still it should be anywhere around 31 32 मुझे लग रहा है, because at the end of the day the intake is less, तो इतने बच्चे निकल आएंगे. बट आई वुड कीप इट अराउंड 31 32. ऑफ कोर्स मोर क्लैरिटी विल इमर्ज इन द कमिंग डेज, विल डेफिनेटली अपडेट दैट. मुझे नहीं लगता है कि 3-4 नंबर से ज्यादा, 3 या 4 नंबर मैक्सिमम ड्रॉप होना चाहिए. Here it was last year EWS category was 26. I believe should be nearly around 23, maybe 22 23, not more than that. Here it could be possibly around 20, could be possibly around 16. 13 each was there for ST and PWD category. मुझे लगता है कि मैं इसको मेंटेन करना चाहूंगा. बहुत ज्यादा चेंजेस इसमें मुझे नहीं दिख रहे हैं. 12 से 13 अभी मुझे दिख रहे हैं कि that should be the possibility. Now the game changer section definitely, game changer definitely is the VARC section. Last year, if I talk about, the general category cutoff again was 113, which was almost similar to 2022 cutoff. 23 का पेपर easy था, तो वहां पर कट ऑफ 125 चला गया था. बट इन 2022 वी हैड 112 एज द कट ऑफ, 113 वाज द कट ऑफ लास्ट ईयर. आई बिलीव यहाँ पे 5-6 से हो सकता है 7 to 8 मार्क्स का ड्रॉप शायद हो जाए. So possibly my take here would be, and you may definitely say if you have another number in mind, my take is this should be somewhere around 105 to 108. यहाँ पे रेंज करना चाहिए. 89 was the cutoff for EWS category last year. I believe should be around 80-81 this time. That's what I believe. NCOBC was 78. I'll keep my take over here being 70-71. 60 was the cutoff for the SC category candidates. I think 55 is what I look at. 40 was the cutoff, anywhere around 36-37. That's what my take would be. And again, 40 was the PWD category, similar number. I would keep it here. So this is what I believe, because I'm also considering the fact that at the end of the day, we have to realize there are 150 seats cumulative of all the categories. If we get into the categories, I don't think they'll be so much difficult for them to find those number of students. At the end of the day, we know every year nearly around 800-840 students are given the opportunity based on cutoffs clearance for the next part of the selection process, which is personal interviews. So this is what I believe. Of course, this is based on the first impression. The so many students we have spoken to might change a little bit here and there. We'll definitely do a more in-depth discussion with the students, and if we believe there are major changes in this, we'll do a shorts around this and we'll talk about that. Shaswita, your view on this?
I would definitely agree with you, sir, because again, if we talk about the difficulty level, questions weren't that difficult. they were definitely in the composition they differ. अरिथमेटिक के क्वेश्चन नहीं है, algebra के क्वेश्चंस आ गए, हायर मैथमेटिक्स के क्वेश्चन आ गए, बट द डिफिकल्टी लेवल वाजंट समथिंग कि स्टूडेंट माइट हैव फेस्ड कि बिल्कुल ही अटेम्प्ट नहीं हो रहे हो, दे वर एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड. सो थोड़ा सा हमारी डिफिकल्टी लेवल वाज स्लाइटली ऑन अ हायर साइड, but again not a great change that we can expect in terms of cutoffs, because again questions were like very similar. जो हम अगर डिफिकल्टी लेवल की बात करें, ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर टू द लास्ट ईयर की था. ये भी फीडबैक मिला ही था हमें स्टूडेंट से कि अगर डिफिकल्टी लेवल की बात करते हैं, just because the composition changed, it seemed difficult to the student, but yes, in terms of question पे अगर हम specifically बात करें तो they weren't that difficult or undoable, unmanageable. So that is why like like there won't be a much variance in terms of the cutoffs that we are discussing. Definitely, as and when we get to know about this examination, or the feedback from the student, there can be difference in terms of the feedback. It's subjective, but yes, till now, up until the feedback that we have gathered, that we have collected, that this is definitely the scenario up until now.
Okay, I think so. We move on to the last part of the session. So, this definitely was one of the biggest examinations for the aspirants today. Actually, those who are appearing for 2025 different examination. But before we end the session, I would like students to take note of the following. There are applications which are still available, so you should definitely be open to the options as well. Actually, I'm Shillong. The application is expected, as per their website, the application is expected around last week of May or maybe first week of June. Cozy Code, which is launching BMS this year, the 4-year BMS based on NEP. The last date to apply is 22nd of May. Exam will be happening on 22nd of June. This paper is expected to have only verbal ability and quantitative aptitude. They have already given some detail, but what exactly would be the structure of the paper, that is yet to be known. We have already written to them. Hopefully, we'll get some reply. INPAT, which is for Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies University. The exams are happening till 31st May. You can apply till 26th May, and then you can book your slot on or till 31st May. So you can appear for the examination. And Nirma University, another prominent one, if I talk about, the last date to apply is 31st May. Now, Nirma University admissions will be based on your performance in today's examination only. So, but the application date is still available. I think you must keep your options open. While you may be very positive after today's performance, but I would want everybody to consider these options, apply. अपने options हमेशा open रखने चाहिए. And with that note, I believe we come to an end of the session. We'll still continue talking to the students, and this is the time now to go full throttle for the PDP preparation, which is interview preparation. तो interview में देखो ध्यान रखना, IIM इंदौर में academics पे बहुत ज्यादा क्वेश्चन पूछे जाते हैं. Your past academics, your subjects from class 12, start working on them. You may believe that my board exams are over, I need not open my book once again, but in the interview you'll come across a lot of questions on your subjects which you have studied in class 12. So please open, work on them, because यहाँ पे maximum questions पूछे जाएंगे. Before we move on and close this session, Sashwita, any parting note you have?
Yes, so जैसा कि आपने बोला, we have been, अभी हमने अपना जितना पार्ट करना था, we have done that. Definitely इसका बहुत ही मेजर पार्ट रहेगा in deciding the admission at IIM Indore, because 65% वेटेज हमारा इस एंट्रेंस एग्जाम को रहता है, बट डेफिनेटली 35% जो वेटेज हमारा इंटरव्यू की परफॉर्मेंस को रहता है, दैट इज ऑल्सो नॉट समथिंग विच इज इनसिग्निफिकेंट इन नंबर. सो वहां पे भी आप अपने ओवरऑल आउटकम को, ओवरऑल सिचुएशन को अपने फेवर में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हो. सो एज सर स्टेटेड, गेट स्टार्टेड विद द एकेडमिक्स, बिकॉज वहां पे इज नॉट जस्ट अबाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द कॉन्सेप्ट्स, आप उसको कितने अच्छे से कम्युनिकेट कर पा रहे हो, वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर रहता है. सो नॉट जस्ट दैट कि आप रिवाइज करो, यहाँ पे आप see how the communication works for you, whether you are able to deliver what you have in your mind properly, fluently, all those sort of things matters in your interview. So get started with that, be hopeful about your performance today, and yes, all the very best for whatever the results will be. We'll be waiting for that as well, and rooting for you as well. So yes, have a nice day, and all the best.
Yes, that's what I would say. Go chill now, actually, because has happened. बहुत अच्छा मेहनत करके गए थे। देखो इम्पैक्ट सभी पे पड़ेगा, सो यू डोंट वरी अबाउट योरसेल्फ ओनली कि हाँ सिर्फ मेरा ही खराब हुआ है, अगर जो हुआ है सबके साथ हुआ है। सो आई से इस टाइम नाउ यू टेक सम रेस्ट, गो चिल आउट, वांट टू वॉच मूवी, वेब सीरीज, व्हाटएवर यू वांट टू डू, व्हाटएवर गिव्स you that positive outlook, go do that today. Actually, that's what I would say, and we'll come back with more and more sessions around the admissions. So see you next time. Thank you so much for joining in today. All the best.